Good morning. This is, what is today? Today is September the 6th, here in Empire, Colorado, elevation 8,600 feet. We're having a fairly nice, dry fall day up here, except for a bunch of smoke in the air from all the forest fires burning in the western part of the United States. This time of the year, it's getting kind of cold at night. It's actually 32 degrees this morning, and frost was on things. And unfortunately, I start taking a few of the bikes down for the winter and prepping them for storage. Wanted to make a short video of one of my favorite bikes here, which I've been working on for years. This is a bike that I've owned for over 30 years, and gone through a lot of changes in its lifespan. Originally it was a 1977 Yamaha XT500, and of course it's still the Yamaha 500. It's had a lot of changes done to it over the years. I can't really recall everything I've done to it, but starting with the motor, obviously it does not have the stock gearbox anymore. It's got an external K&N filter, and it has a aftermarket Mikuni round slide carburetor, a little bit bigger. That's either a 36 or a 38. I found that both of them work well with the 500 motor. The motor is set up to take advantage of a larger carburetor. The motor itself has it's been bored out just a little bit to accommodate a new piston. I'm trying to recall which piston this one has in it, and I'm pretty sure that this one has a 12-to-1 compression piston, which is kind of a ridiculous compression ratio for old motors like this if you're running them at lower elevation. But at 8,600 feet up here, the extra pop in the motor from a 12-to-1 actually is doable, and it can still run on pump gas if you use the 91 octane. It retains the original 6-volt ignition system, points ignition system. I've thought about over the years converting it to a CDI type ignition, but just stuck with the points on this one. They've been quite reliable. I did notice at altitude that I can run really pretty lean carburetor settings, because I'm starting at 8,600 feet, going up to generally around 11,000 feet on the trails around here. And occasionally, because this bike can carry a license plate, occasionally I'll even do things like take it up to the top of Mount Evans, which is 14,000 feet. And it actually runs very good up there. Head is stock on it, except that I did a little modification on the intake side of the head, where I went in with some JB weld and basically kind of did some micro porting with it to give it a little bit more intake velocity in theory. My wife was really my wife will ride on the back of it occasionally, and she thought I was going to mess up the way the bike ran, but she even agreed after it was totally rebuilt with that head mod that it ran better than the original setup, which is basically a stock motor with a high compression piston. The exhaust system is basically a stock XT exhaust system that I can show you the end of it where I gutted it, so it's no longer U.S. Forest Service legal, but I don't really use it as an off-road bike too much, gravel roads only. Rear shocks are progressive suspension with slightly heavier spring. It uses dual springs, and I used a heavier spring on it just because I do tend to carry my wife on the back occasionally when we'll be doing Jones Pass or Rollins Pass. Rear wheel is I forget where the rear wheel came off of. It's a Yamaha wheel. It does have at least the brake backing plate says magnesium on it, so I'm guessing it probably either came off of a TT model or one of the Yamahas of the same era that was maybe a two-stroke. It could have been off of a YZ, but I just don't remember. The wheel itself has Buchanan, oversized Buchanan stainless steel spokes on it. Was relaced by Woody's Wheel Works in Denver. Swing arm is stock, of course. Let's see, front forks are basically stock. Front wheel also was relaced by Woody's Wheel Works with the oversized Buchanan spokes. They do something called a super spoke, which is basically they build a super strong wheel, and they do a very nice job. They've been doing wheel work for me for now going on at least 30 years, maybe slightly longer than that. And they're also down in Denver. They're very good people, and they always do a great job. The gas tank is not a stock. It's not the bike that. It's not the tank that came on it when it was in 1977. It is an aluminum tank, which is really nice because they don't rust. Any of the older XT tanks, like 76, 77, those things, invariably they rust out, start leaking, and give you all kinds of headaches. Now, you can feel free to laugh at the seat. I've got a lot of seats for these bikes because I own a lot of XTs, and this is one that I just got it off of eBay, and I was doing some experimenting, just putting some padding on it and trying to see if I could make it more comfortable for myself. Since I have such a long inseam, I wanted to, get a little higher up in the saddle. So, don't be too critical about the seat. I think I only gave about 20 bucks for it off of eBay anyway. Moving to this side of the engine, you can see where there is a nice oil line going from the bottom of the cylinder up to the exhaust rocker side. This is not quite as good of a setup as the oil lines that come up and feed both the intake and the rocker. I've got one of those and I'll upgrade it at some point, but it's certainly nicer than the stock one, which basically just came up and fed the intake side and ignored the fact that the hot side was the rocker valve side, the rocker side for the exhaust valves. I because this motor revs a lot higher with the Megacycle 5120 cam, I did basically use the equivalent of XT gearing. So it's got basically the larger XT rear sprocket. Forget what's on the front sprocket, but anyway, everything's kind of dialed in for road use. And the little rubber block on the spring-mounted chain tensioner is basically my own setup. I just got a piece of plastic from somewhere. I forget it. I don't know if it's Delrin or whatever, and I carved out a chunk of it and fit it on there. It works good. The rear of it is rear of the bike's got a that's a Yamaha whatever you call it, little carry-on job on the back of it. Rack. I was just looking for the word. I just couldn't even come up with it. My brain's fading. Anyway, it's padded a little bit just so things don't rattle around on it too much, and my wife can also scoot all the way on the back of it. Things get a little hairy, and I need more room. The rear of the pipe, as you can see, has been gutted. I don't really recommend doing that, but it was rotted out, and I just basically trimmed off the end and pulled out all the garbage, and it's considerably louder than a stock pipe, but I ride with earplugs anyway, and even without them it's not too bad. You see, that's a little damage right there where the license plate mount is. Anyway, just an overview of kind of a neat old bike. I mean, it's kind of crusty looking. There's no pretense here. It's not any kind of a show bike or garage queen or any of that. This bike's gotten lots of use over the years. The motor was stock when I got it. I rebuilt it with the Megacycle cam and a 10.5-to-1 Venolia piston and that carb many years ago, and then it got upgraded again to the 12-to-1 carb and a new Megacycle 5120 cam. I've played around with carbs over the years. I've tried 36s and 38s. They both work pretty well with this kind of motor setup. And that's about it. Just wanted to show people what you can do with an old Yamaha. There's plenty of videos on these bikes out there. This one, over the years, has had a lot of money spent on it. These bikes can be bottomless pits for dumping money into them, especially when you start upgrading suspensions and buying trick exhaust systems and doing the motor. But they don't make 40-year-old thumpers like this anymore. And it's kind of an icon, and it's one of the original big bore Japanese thumpers. So hopefully these things will remain popular and valuable into the future. People will still be interested in them after I stop riding them. I'm 64 years old, and I started riding these in 1979 is when I got my first XT500, and I have continuously owned XT500s since 1979. And they are a blast. They're not the best trail bike in the world, but they're kind of like